Your boys are back. Welcome to In Rotation Podcast. Your boys are back. Welcome back to In Rotation Podcast, episode 8, where we're discussing Action Bronson's Only for Dolphins. This is In Rotation Podcast, and with us today we have Jer, Nick, Jay, and I'm your host, B. What's up, guys?
What up?
So we'll do some first takes, and I feel like, Jay, this was kind of your recommendation, so let's start with you, man.
It was technically my recommendation, yes.
Yeah, you guys kind of colluded on like the voting there.
Listen, I was completely independent on my voting and on my. I don't know if people know, like we all submit a song and then we vote and we have a voting process. And when I vote completely independent. Even if they vote before me, I don't know what the numbers are or anything. I vote completely on my taste, on what I like. And if I haven't listened, is the artist interesting? And somehow Action Bronson won. And it happened to be my submission. That being said,
Does everyone vote like that though?
Let's not get political, okay? Let's not get political.
Yeah, it's October 25th, man. We're coming up to November 3rd. No, but that's just the way I vote on this. But I was kind of just for the record on the side, I was kind of hoping that Reason, Jeremy Velarde, your submission would win. That was my top vote because I'm completely unfamiliar and like it was a TDE artist that I'm unfamiliar with, so I wanted that to diagnose it. But on Action, on this album specifically, First Take, I thought it was true to who he was and kind of true to what he usually does on albums. And I thought it was a album, and it was hard to pick specific songs to call out for it. But specific to which I respect from him. I appreciate that he does that with his albums. I thought his last album, Lamb Over Rice, was better than this. It was like this, but just better, like overall. And I think it was because Alchemist produced the whole thing, and I think that he meshes so well with Alchemist because they do that show. They do the show Fuck That's Delicious, where it's kind of like they're going to different places trying food. And it's a personality show, and they're funny as hell. And Alchemist is always there. He produced that last one. It was so good. This was just kind of like that, except a little bit lesser quality for me. So I still liked it, but it was slight disappointment for me because I'm comparing it to that. So that was my first take.
Okay. I had no idea that Alchemist was involved with the show, so that's pretty cool. And you're right, Lamb Over Rice was definitely better than this, and it makes sense that it was. But interesting enough for me, I thought the Alchemist produced song on this record was my least favorite produced. So I'll say that. And let's see, it was it Sergio? I think it was Sergio. Track number 8. And I don't know, it's just kind of like boring. I really like the production on this one. I won't get too much into it now because we're doing first takes. But and I don't want to. I guess I'll just do my first take. I'll do that.
Go for it.
My first take was I absolutely love the production on this one. It was a breath of fresh air for me. It's not beats that you would expect any kind of rapper to rap over. And Action just does it so well, regardless of content or whatever. Just the flows, the beats, like he just made the best out of it. There were some duds here for me, but overall, just the vibe, I really enjoyed it. It was something really different, which I enjoyed. And with that, what do you think, Jer?
I thought it was a well-rounded album in the sense that, there were a few like reggae tracks in there, which I thought was interesting. And like you said, not necessarily the type of like music that I was expecting to hear. Interesting analysis from Jay. someone who's, you know, listened to his past work. This was actually an introduction to Action for me. Hadn't really listened to any of his music before this. And I think that's probably one of the main reasons that I picked this as my top pick. Yeah, it was definitely different, but enjoyable, like really like easy to listen to passively. Yeah, but a little slow in certain parts. I thought some of the lyrics were pretty clever. Um, you know, but yeah, that's my first take.
For sure. And I think that's from this being kind of like my second Action project, like the references are what makes it fun. And I think that's for me what I kind of like honed in on. It was a fun album to listen to. Not superb, not like, I mean, we've reviewed a lot of like heavy lyric intense albums, and this is kind of our first one in a while that's not like that. So it was definitely a big change in terms of analyzing, right? Because that's what we're here to do. Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'm similar in that I'm not super familiar with Action. I think I always had like this idea in my head of like who he was that was based off of absolutely nothing. I have no idea where it like came from. And my first real introduction to him at all was actually he was on the Hot Ones recently. And so I got an idea of kind of who he is as like a dude. He reminds me a lot of like DJ Khaled, but like with some like actual rapping talent. And so that kind of made me interested in this album for sure. Like once I realized his personality of kind of hearing the album, there's a lot of it that's pretty interesting with, you know, some of the beats and stuff like that are kind of interesting. There's also a lot of stuff that's sort of kind of kitschy, like with some of like the commercials that he kind of did, and a couple of the samples were a little kind of weird too. I did not the dolphin thing, and hopefully someone can explain that to me at some point. What's going on with that? But yeah, I didn't really know his work before, so I didn't really know what to expect. But after kind of seeing his personality on the Hot Ones, I could see that kind of come through on that. So I got to give him credit for this being. You could tell that he had a lot of fun with this album. That, you know, this is very much like his personality kind of came through on this album. A lot of drug and gambling references like all throughout it, which, you know, the one thing I will give him credit for is he'd had some pretty kind of clever rhymes and ways of making some clever jokes, and I did kind of enjoy his rhyming process in a lot of it. I thought, you know, it was very rhyme heavy, which made it pretty interesting for me. But overall, I didn't really like it that much, but it had its moments for me.
Yeah, you know, the opening track, it kind of just like sets the stage. It's this a very specific and I think consistent sound throughout the album, and it seems like kind of like a throwback to, I don't know, like a late night TV show or like an award ceremony or something like that. It's got that like sound, like, and I wanted to call this one out specifically. The first track was produced by Action. He has a producer credit on here, which I thought was super interesting. And also, you got that full on saxophone solo. And I when I listened to this, I was like, man, Nick said never go full jazz on the RTJ review. And so I wanted to get Nick's thoughts on that. Did he go full jazz?
No, I don't think he went full jazz, but that was one of the kitschy kind of things that I was referring to. That was one of he did. It was a talk show vibe. That's the
Yeah.
exact thought that I had, you know, too. And with the talk show vibe and the commercial kind of thing, like, I mean, he obviously did it on purpose. That's what he was like going for. You know what I mean? But to answer your question, he didn't go full jazz. He went full something else that I also wasn't really a fan of.
There's a lot of that on the album, though. I mean, you
Mhm.
hear horns like throughout the album, and a lot of like piano, jazzy piano.
Right.
Yeah, it's like the weird throwback sound.
And for
Thing.
me, like I said, I thought it was a breath of fresh air. It was unique, and switch things up, especially like from what I normally listen to. So, and Nick said it, like it sounds like he had a lot of fun on the album, and I don't have an explanation for the fucking dolphin shit, but but the fucking
Yeah,
dolphin ad libs are just fucking kill me, man.
yeah, the dolphin thing, I don't either, but that's like part of his thing for me. I feel like following him on not only in the music channel, because the first time I heard Action, um, well, to be honest, Mac Miller, because I'm a huge fan of Mac Miller's music purely. So I hear Mac Miller has a verse or a line where he says they want the action Bronson. So I'm like, what? So I tap into him after listening to that song. I'm like, this fool is not that good. Like he's not. It's whatever. It's interesting. It's unique. And then I get into Action on YouTube and Action on Vice Network, or Action in big ass movies like The Irishman. He has like features in like with Scorsese and Judd Apatow and the new Pete Davidson movie. I'm like, okay, this dude is just a modern personality. Like, you know, he's not like a I don't want to say, okay, let me change that, because I was gonna say he's not a respected rapper, because his rapping skills are pretty good. That's what keeps him alive, like keeps him afloat in rapping, because it's not like he's like good, but he can keep a he can keep a tone, and he can keep a ambiance together, and he's very specific and creative with what he says, even if it's stupid as hell, even if it's like dumb as hell or like funny. So that's like kind of brings me into his whole vibe. When he releases a new album, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be funny, this is gonna be entertaining, and this is gonna be it's gonna be a ride. So I'm always intrigued. But sometimes, like on the last one, it'll be like, okay, musically, this is pretty good. Um, and maybe the last one wasn't necessarily because of him. I think it was more because of Alchemist, and he was the executive producer. On this one, B, you could probably be more uh, knowledgeable on what, because I don't know who produced each and every song. I didn't even know that Alchemist produced Sergio song, but he's a personality to me, and he's funny as hell. Like I think he's a good comedian.
I agree with that. That like the actual like skill, or like his like rapping style like isn't very dynamic. It's almost like kind of like you get the same type of flow throughout the whole album, where I would have liked to see like a little switch up. But really, it seems for me like that seemed kind of repetitive. You know, even though there was like, you know, like I said, some different styles of music throughout the album, the flow like never really changed. And I think maybe that's kind of what Jay's speaking to, as far as maybe his abilities aren't there. I mean, he's such a well-rounded person, and it seems like he likes to do a lot of different shit. You know, maybe his you know, his skills as a rapper aren't like necessarily like that good comparative to some other names in the game right now. But that being said, like B was talking about, you get these really funny references, and you get like, you know, he's a big movie guy. You know, and he's got a lot of movie references. He's got a lot of like throwback like sports references. You know, there's a little bit of something for everybody, and I think that's kind of what adds to his appeal.
Completely agree with you guys. You know, and I think the biggest thing for me, like most of the songs I ended up liking on this, but I think the big thing is there's not really that much to tell them apart from each other. I think you guys kind of said it, like the flow can be the same, and I enjoy it at different parts throughout, but it's just like if the beat didn't stand out to me, then the song didn't stand out to me, you know?
Totally.
And I kind of had this idea as I was like listening through it and like analyzing it, and it's like I wonder if Action writes to the vibe of the song. Like he hears the beat and then he's like, all right, this is how I'm going to make the song, or does he actually come to the table with an idea for a song and then kind of make that work into the beat, if that makes sense? And
I wonder the same thing.
I kind of feel like it's the former. Like he hears a track and he's like, all right, this is what I'm going to do, instead of like coming to the table, like, I want to make a song about this specifically and then doing that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, especially given that he doesn't change up his style very much at all. but like I don't think he came in and was like, hey, I'm gonna turn this into like sounds like a cologne commercial. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he wanted to do that. Then he heard whatever the song was, and he said, "This sounds like a cologne commercial," and so I'm going to turn the song into that. Is kind of what I would think, because otherwise, like, why would you even do that?
Yo, did you
Right.
see though the end of the Hot Ones episode where he's like talking about what's going on in his life? Apparently, he did make a cologne.
Oh, so
Really?
that's true.
I mean, he's
I forgot
Who's
about that.
promoting it, huh?
right. That happened, right, Nick? I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I forgot about that. So,
Isn't that
or maybe, or he might have just been fucking around and talking about like this
Dude,
with him.
100%.
Like, who knows? Like, you know, because he's a goofball for sure.
100%.
Yeah,
I'll
I
say
agree.
though that I would prefer a weird commercial about a fragrance than like a fucking skit. I'm so tired of
Yes.
skits on hip hop albums. He at least made that fun. Maybe you didn't enjoy it, but it was better than some dumb bullshit, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
think you could argue that it's a version of a skit. You
Sure.
know, like
Uh-huh.
I forget what was it, the Joyner Lucas album we did, where those skits were like
Oh
Mm-hmm.
super
God.
like
Word.
heavy, and we're like trying to like
Word.
send these important messages through the skits, like
Word.
like because I also we talked about this before, obligatory Eminem reference. I hate Eminem's skits, but
Yeah,
like
yeah,
and they don't really tend to contribute. And I think that the cologne commercial, whatever, didn't contribute either. To me, they're in the same vein. You know what I mean? It's maybe you like the humor of it more or whatever, but like some people love Ken Kniff, and some people like stupid cologne commercials. You know what I mean? I think
Right.
it just depends on how you're vibing with what's going on in the album. I think, but yeah, to your point, there's something like the Joyner Lucas skits where you're trying to like teach me a life lesson and teach me about your history through your skits. It was like those ones were like creepy and weird. You know.
Mm. I
Yeah,
just
those
think
ones
that
did not hit.
they didn't hit, and this one it's musical. It's still musical. He's doing a busted ass like like imitation of some cologne commercial.
yeah.
To me, it had me cracking up when I heard it, and then especially the priest, man, woman, whatever. His ad libs to me, that's not an ad lib,
Yes.
but his ad libs throughout the album were hilarious. They're different to like Migos out ad libs. His are like, I don't know, they're just funnier to me. They're funny. I think to me, Action is the funniest rapper, and I don't want to get too far into that because I that's kind of like one of my main points for my favorite song for when we get into that segment. But that song Splash had me cracking up, dude, because it's a skit, but it's also he's doing that splash part in the beginning, but then he goes into bars in that same song,
Yes.
and he's doing bars.
Good bars at
Right,
that.
yeah.
Like some of the
So
stronger bars on the album, like even though it's like one like tiny little verse,
right.
like he came with it. Like I actually really liked the flow on that one.
Mm-hmm. Agreed, dude. Same.
I appreciate it, like the charisma is so much of everything that he does, right? Because he has confidence, and at the same time he's not afraid to make fun of himself. Like there was a bar about like he had to drive a Suburban because he can't fit his body in a Lando. Like he's not afraid to like make fun of himself. And it's
The
just
Jeep Cherokee Loretto, B.
thank you. Thank you.
Is that
Like
a Suburban? Maybe.
I don't
One and the
know.
same. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not rich enough to have nice cars, so.
But Action is.
Oh yeah. Like when you have like the swagger, the energy, and you're on a good beat, like I think that's when everything's hitting for him. And there's definitely moments throughout this album where it's like that. And like I said, it's a fun project. He has fun, and I enjoyed it for that.
True. I liked all the Ninja Turtle references. I will say that there were a couple of those. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there was one on this Splash song, and so I just needed to squeeze that in there before we moved on.
Yeah, that's the I'm like a Ninja Turtle Battle Toad. That's like
Yeah.
a double one. That's like two of the dopest arcade games from like back in the day, Battle Toads and also Ninja Turtles.
Dude,
Yeah.
his references are so like okay, so some like someone like I think we mentioned in the past, like the game name drops all the time, but this dude references like pop culture all the time on every like song. But the thing is with him, it's like he's a his taste is like exactly the same as mine, so I let it slide, which I probably shouldn't, but he'll just say something about like the Diaz brothers on that Golden Eye
Yeah,
song.
yeah.
I'm like, dope. And then like he'll say, because he was in the Irishman movie, he'll reference the Irishman, and I'm like, okay, dope. And then Dolph Lundgren on Latin Grammys, dude is in what is it, Rocky?
Rocky, he's the Russian from Rocky
Yeah,
4.
the Russian from Rocky. I'm like, okay, this dude is just like his references, what he's into is like what I'm into, so that gives him points, which is like easy point for him to score, but just by fitting them into there. Um,
They're not just they're not like you said, they're not just easy references either. They're like kind of deep cuts, like
right,
random
yeah,
shit that not everyone knows about, but like you just barely know. Like, and like a lot of these, whenever like some of these are like whatever in my head, but like I did like get like a good amount of them, and I was like, oh shoot,
yeah.
Yeah, and there's one in there where he's talking about some money that he was gambling that he lost, like because Bo Jackson got like tackled on the 30-yard line or something like that. I'm like, I know
Oh
who Bo
yeah,
Jackson is, but there was some specific thing that happened where like apparently people
exactly,
from whatever time or
yeah,
generation like remember for like decades afterwards. Like, remember that time Bo
yeah.
Jackson got tackled on the 30? It's like I have no idea, but he probably legit lost money off of that, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree with the specificity of like how specific these references are, and like, even with like the Lakers, like someone where they got injured, like hurt his knee. Specifically, he tells about what injuries they got, like when he bet on the game, and then he lost money for them. Even in old stuff, like I remember me and my brothers were cracking up on one of his older albums, but I can't remember the name of the album, but he bet and he said that he set up a game with one of the players to lose the game so they would win a bet in a college football game, but it was like a really small, it was like it was just funny because the school was like nobody would know the school. I can't even remember the school that he referenced. He's like, I set up this game and it doesn't even rhyme with what he's saying before, but it's just hilarious and it's very specific. So I think it's just hilarious. He cracks me up with that kind of stuff.
it is hilarious too. But I worry about the guy, man. These these gambling and drug habits, dude. Action. Come and talk to me, man, if you ever need help. Like I think every single drug that I've ever heard of is mentioned on this album at one point or
Yeah,
another.
for real. And he's doing like there's like crazy shit with it where he's like taking mushrooms and driving a stick shift, or like he takes
Right.
acid but he accidentally ate the whole sheet. So he says he's not gonna come down for like 3 days or whatever. Like, yeah, he's
Right.
not just taking drugs. He's like wiling out with them, like getting crazy.
Yep.
I mean, obviously to a
Binging.
certain degree he's probably fucking around, but at the same time, like probably not.
Right. You
Yeah,
look at
yeah.
him, you look at his body type, you look at him, you look at his lifestyle, because he's open with it. He's on YouTube with it. He's with all these shows. Does not look healthy. Does not look. I mean, Jerry, you mentioned in our group chat before, he did lose a lot of weight. Through this quarantine really helped him. He's like, I followed it too. He's been working out. But all the stuff before that he puts out, he's open with it. He does not look like he's going to last long. You know what I mean?
Seriously.
Until now, until the quarantine.
You know what's
Is it-
funny that randomly reminds me too, because he makes like the Jeep Cherokee references or whatever. I remember on that Hot Ones he talks about the fact that he doesn't buy nice cars anymore because because you don't get that like kind of flexing from him the way you get on like a lot of other dudes, because he said that one time he bought like a super nice car and like wrecked it the same day and he was just out like $400,000 or something like that. So he's like I don't buy nice cars anymore.
Damn.
It almost doesn't. Oh, B, please go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, there's also like ridiculous drug lines. Like he talks about like snorting activists, which is like not something you can do. It's a liquid, and there's like a weird like heroin line thrown in. So I think a lot of it is just like
Mhm.
being funny, being this character. I think a lot of it is him kind of being this like larger than life, charismatic type of person. And I was also going to sneak in a lot of WWE references. My boy's a big fan, and I think if you can give yourself these like nicknames like baklava, like these fucking nicknames, and you can like make it work. That just shows me that you have like that fucking charisma to like make people believe who you say you are, what you rap about, and for that I give him a lot of respect.
That's like a really cool nickname too. Is that something that comes up like on earlier albums, or is that something that's new?
Jay would have to tell us.
Yeah, he says baklava all the time, but I admit that I don't know what the hell it means. I don't know. I just knew it as that's what he calls himself. He says,
Well,
and he calls himself Bam
it's a
Bam.
type of like Russian dessert or something.
Yeah,
like
it's a
that.
dessert.
Yeah, I think it's like a Greek pastry.
That's hilarious.
which is like perfect for like a Greek who loves food.
Oh yeah,
I also
it's
noticed
Greek.
in one of
It's
the.
Greek.
Oh yeah, a Greek. So I noticed on one of his ad libs he fucks up baklava. He says like balakva, and then he just keeps it on. But he says both. I like that rawness about him because I think he knows that it's funny, and it's just like against this whatever the typical is. It cracks me up. I like it. Shit's hilarious to me.
All right. Well, what were some of your guys' favorite tracks? And I guess Jay, this is your guy. So, what was your favorite song on this project?
Man, when you said you didn't like Sergio, that's my
Yeah.
favorite track, dude. And it makes sense though, because I didn't know that it was Alchemist. And thanks to you for being the producer head and me being the producer idiot for telling me. But I think that was like I said before, it was hard for me to pick one because whether it's a fault or a plus for him, all the songs are cohesive and they all kind of sound similar. So when it got into Vega, I was like, okay, the sound is switching a little bit for me, and Vega might be my favorite song, but then 2 songs later, Sergio, I felt more connected to that one. I like the line. I'm gonna read it. Well, first I'll say that I like the low key vibe of it. That's my style. I really like how it's a low key beat and the ambiance of it. But I liked the specific one was kind of sad what he's saying, but also it was very artistic and very poetic how he said it. Was the line about I see the world from all angles and from a thin thread my soul dangles just like a mango. Alpha Bravo looking like your boy just won the lotto, then drowned every dollar in the bottle and put a bunch of junk in his arm and his nose and in between his toes. So we get into the drugs thing there. But the line that really hit me was because feeling good's the only thing he knows. So I'm like, okay, that's kind of a deep line to me. I'm not coming to action for deep lines. I'm coming up, but since the vibe of that song was so light and low key, and it kind of hit me on a deep level. I'm like, I'm not used to that with action. And it was kind of sad to me, and I think he's putting himself on a platter for us to observe. I was like, okay, this is kind of a sad thing here, and it's hitting me. So that's kind of why I like that song the best. But that's not what he usually is, and I think that's why I like that one the best. So I don't know if that's a hit to the album at a whole. Maybe on this next album I want to hear more of this, but maybe not, because I think this is, if you're gonna get deep, this is the amount of deep I want from Action Bronson. The rest of it, I want it to be fun and I want it to be funny. So I appreciated this because it balanced out the album. I like Sergio a lot.
I was gonna bring up actually some of those lyrics earlier because we were talking about how he's, some of these drug references and how like a lot of them are a lot like pretty lighthearted and stuff like that. And he talks somewhere else about putting H in his arteries or whatever. And then you get into this one and like specifically when you talk about junk in the arm and the nose and then between his toes, which for if you know a little bit about like that, to the point where if you're going between your toes of like trying to hide track marks, so you've run out of places to do it because your arm's like so tore up, like that shit's not like the lighthearted like kind of references, you know what I mean? Like that's where you kind of start to wonder you know, we recently talked about like Future and like, you know, his like codeine addiction and shit, and like where you kind of wonder how much of it's like for fun and for the culture and how much of it is like shit, dude, like why, you know, like how real are you kind of being with this? So that's one of the things about this song, that it was kind of out of sort of the tone of a lot of the rest of the album, because he wasn't just goofing around and stuff like that, you know, talking about like smoking like Nickelodeon slime or whatever, which is like one of my favorite lyrics, where that's like a funny kind of like a drug weed reference, but this stuff's like, you know, it's not even like a joke reference. It's just like, it's heavy, you know what I mean? Which is why it's kind of, like you were saying, Jay, kind of one of the, something you don't normally expect from him, and why it was kind of cool, because it was sort of out of his normal, I would say vein, which vein was like a weird word to use when we're talking about heroin, but that was an accident.
Nice.
That was an
Nice,
accident.
dude.
Honestly, when I first heard the lyric, "Looking your boy just like won the lotto," like you think of someone who like has a lot of money now, probably dressed nice, and then you get to the next lyric, but then drown every dollar in a bottle. Every single one of them is the ad lib. Like I thought it was. I laughed at it the first time I heard it, but then you're right. It gets from there. It just goes downhill. It gets very real. And one of my other favorite lines from this song was when he opens up his verse, my phone blowing up because I've been missing for days, and the ad lib is, "Ain't nobody calling you, man."
Mhm.
Just you're right. Like the ad libs are just on point, and they make the song better. So let's
That
go
makes it
to go ahead, Jay
that
or Jared.
yeah that ad lib just makes it even like just that much more real. Like this guy has like probably been like down and out a few times. Like
Oh, for sure.
just like you said, be like, no, ain't no one calling you, man. That's like the type of like just like negative self-talk that like I don't know, man, you can get into when you're sort of down on your luck,
Mm.
or yeah, man. So that just makes it like real. Like, and Jay, I'm not surprised this is like one of your jams, because like I have like on my notes like super laid back and bass driven, like bass guitar, like it's just like super low key. And Jay, I know that's your steez, but yeah, it's like there's like a lot of like destructive behavior, like sort of like like it gets real, like, and like losing a house on betting, like that's like also like gambling is also like a drug in some ways. And yeah, man, like when I was saying earlier that action can always reach out to me, like
This is his intervention. This podcast. What Jared's new thing is like talking directly to artists. He did it. He did it on the Luda pod.
Yeah, but yeah, I won't take any more time on that song, but it's a good track.
Well, since we're talking, Jared, what was your favorite track?
Yeah, like it's a good question, B. No, it's funny, like
completely out of the blue too. What the
heck? No, it's funny, like because I'm actually kind of torn between two. I think Jay kind of mentioned two tracks like in his little spiel, so I think I will too. Like I was kind of torn between.
The fuck, bro?
I was torn between Marcus.
I'm kidding, dude.
Right.
I did. I mentioned two. Go ahead, sorry.
I was torn between Marcus Aurelius and Shredder, and yeah, and I don't know. It's funny because like I think I'm not gonna like take time talking about each one, but I think I'm gonna go with Shredder, just because like the lyrics, I think specifically, and the title is also a Turtles reference. Mm-hmm. So, I appreciate that. But yeah, the lyrics, like, like like it's driving through the mall, driving in his Grand Cherokee Laredo through the mall like it's Mario Kart. And then this shit kicking harder than those four turtles. Like, it's like, yeah. So as I drive the Grand Cherokee Laredo through the mall like it's Mario Kart, pop the hood, all chrome with the four turbos. This shit kicking harder than those four turtles. Like, I don't know. I thought those lyrics were fire, and I think they were like just like good enough to like make this song my top track.
Very cool, man. I dug this one a lot too. The producer is one of the one of the producers that does a lot of Griselda shit. So it's usually this like grimy, like New York drug rap, and this song is like sounds like it'd be like a song from like a cop drama. Like it's just it's got again it fits the
Totally.
vibe of the album. It's just so different, and I love it. It's super short, and like you said, I love the Mario Kart references that he made.
Almost
And
like
there's
CSI, like
totally
dude, like CSI Miami fucking vibes, dude. Like,
100%. The thing that I thought about interesting about this one is like a 2 minute long song, and it worked. And I think it's because the beat worked. And the very next song on the album is more, it's a cliffhanger. It's like kind of tropical, kind of like islandy. And it was about the same length, but I did not, that was like my least favorite song on the album. And it kind of just makes me think like if action doesn't have a interesting beat, then the song's not going to be interesting. And I kind of feel like that's a detriment. And maybe that's why the Alchemist album was so much better, Jay, because obviously Alchemist is going to bring it every time. So I kind of feel like he's a little bit dependent on what he's working with, even though I think he has a good ear for beats. But when it misses, I feel like it misses big.
I agree.
Nick, what was either your favorite song or least favorite song?
Yeah, so my favorite song was Mongolia.
Yeah.
That was the one that I felt like had
Heard.
the dopest beat on the whole album. It was kind of the most unique beat. I like the wire sample at the beginning. I thought
Word.
that was cool. Like especially,
Yep.
I didn't realize that he was like Greek, but then like hearing like the Greek reference from that. But the
Mm-hmm.
wire is just like a dope show. But also, it's the only song on the album that had features, and I thought both the features were really good. But my favorite part about it, outside from the fact that the beat was so sick, and I think we talked about this a lot, that he seems to sort of rise to the occasion presented by the beat. And so he got this cool vibe, but it gave an old school hip hop vibe. Now, I don't know a lot about Mayhem Lauren and Hologram, the two people that were featured on it. I don't really know their story or their generation or anything like that. I really don't know, but the whole song had this old school hip hop vibe to it, where it really felt like they were coming with just like some proper bars. There wasn't not jokes in the sense that there were in some of the other ones. It was a little bit more of like that classic style of kind of flexing, like just talking about how like dope you are or like how good you are at your craft. And I just like the way that they kind of just kicked it between all three of them for the verses, and it just put together a nice, like, for me it felt like one of the most just like hip hop songs on the whole album, where he wasn't fucking around with being a goofball or anything like that. He was just spitting bars, and he brought on two other people who just spit bars, and they were pretty short song, but I feel like they packed a lot into it. And I'd said earlier too, in kind of my first take, one of the things I liked about this album and his style from getting introduced to it is his kind of way of rhyming, where he really hits the rhymes kind of heavy, where he does a lot of just the kind of rhyming the last sort of phrase of each bar.
Yep.
But he will lean into it for like like a whole stanza or like a whole verse, where he'll just kind of just keep doing like the same rhyme, but spicing it up and figuring out kind of clever or cool ways of getting to that rhyme. And I just felt like in general, this song just really was the one that made me think like, okay, this guy actually has some good flows.
I think what should be impressed by Nick, this was one of the other songs on the album that was credited to being produced by Action himself. And I think it was one of the most interesting beats, kind of had like a international flair or whatever. So
yeah, like an Indian snake
yeah,
charmer vibe.
Yeah, yeah.
100%, 100%. So this one felt to me more like a freestyle, and I think maybe that's by the fact that there wasn't really a hook, just kind of like an instrumental break and then going back in. And it ended up being like less than 3 minutes too, which was interesting to me. Nick, do you think that this song could have been better if it had like a hook and was kind of more developed into a song, or do you feel like it was good for what it was, just kind of being this like hype energy, maybe like freestyle type track?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that a lot of the hooks that are on this album are very good. And so I don't think that that would have added much to it, you know what I mean? Because that the only thing I would say is if they maybe did a hook that really kept within the sort of the nature or like the ambiance of the song, that maybe, but I think this really felt kind of like a cipher, you know, just like this like you said, kind of almost like a freestyle of just like three dudes that are just like, let's spit some bars. And so I don't know that a hook would have added much. And given what some of the other hooks are, I don't think that they would have even been able to come up with a very good one.
That's fair enough. So I guess for my song, Marcus Aurelius was definitely up there. I think Jared said that one. It definitely felt like one of the most fleshed out songs for me. But I think we'd be failing if we didn't talk about Latin Grammy, as that was like the main single for this whole thing. I mean, it was just again a fun track. The beat is so smooth. There's nothing intricate about what's going on here with the lyrics or anything like that. Lots of swag, but he just like flows over this thing, and I think that's kind of like the appeal of the whole project, is that when Action has something that works, if it's a great beat and he can just kind of have fun with it, that's where he shines. And I think that's what happened here. The chorus, like you said, Nick, not nothing to write home about, but it's funny and it works and definitely has that kind of like Latin vibe. And there was a ton of WWE references on this track, which really worked for me. And what I really love, there's the end of his first verse. He says, "For the fight with my seat next to Jeter, I told that motherfucker to roll the weed up." And there's like this pause, and then he ends up with "please." Like it sounds like this like hard flex, like he's like trying to fucking flex on Jeter, but then he ends up with like "please," because he knows he's not like Jeter's level, you know. And I thought that was just like hilarious.
Yeah,
I love
this is
that.
like I think this is like where the album like starts picking up, you know? Like the energy really starts picking up once this song hits. And like that's what got me excited about this song. That's why I appreciate it. Yeah, the chorus, like you said, like it's nothing to write home about, but it's just like it plays into the fact that Action can kind of poke fun at himself, but like also you know, and still flex at the same time. Like
Totally.
you know, yeah. So
Yeah, this is definitely one of the most reference heavy songs on. I mean, it's like almost every other line is some sort of reference. You know, if it takes more than two or three lines to get to his next reference, it's because he's like continuing on like the reference or just trying to kind of bridge between references, which was a lot of fun. It's kind of where I realized that that's kind of his thing. I saw a lot of the personality kind of come through from him on this, of just, you know, we were talking about it's a lot of pop culture and stuff like that, but also very specific. Like this is the one that has the Dolph Lundgren one in it, you know, the Undertaker reference. But also to Jared's point, this is where the album really starts, because you kind of have like that intro song, and it's got the intro, you know, kind of the saxophone or whatever, and then you go into that second track that's got I think that was the one that kind of gave that talk show kind of vibe to it. And that one was like, it was interesting because he's kind of like speaking almost like spoken word kind of poetry on it, like to a certain degree, and it gave me a little respect for him. But I was like, kind of like, when are we going to get into like a song? You know what I mean? And this was the first kind of like real full song. Now, granted, the hook, you know, not really that like impressed with it, but it was the first time where it felt
what
like,
was
okay,
the hook?
you're gonna make me be the one who has to read it? Me be the one that reads it? Yeah, so I might not be able to touch my toes, but I will still fuck these hoes. And then he just repeats it
Nick,
a
uncalled
bunch
for.
of times. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thanks for forcing me into that. No, but so, but it's the first time you kind of get that structure of like a song and being like, okay, we're really getting into like an album here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lyric here on the song, "Drive cars like Dale Senior with my feet up," and I just have to imagine that's like a joke about Dale Senior, the NASCAR driver, wrecking his car and dying because he obviously you can't drive with your feet up. And I just thought that was like
Oh
very
shit.
subtle and very dark, and I kind of loved it for that. If I'm being honest.
Yeah,
Me
I mean, I
too.
knew it was a Dale Earnhardt reference, but
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that.
I feel like it had
Me
to
either.
be.
I thought he was just throwing back to Dale Senior just to be like more obscure than like a Dale Junior reference.
Right.
The further you can go back in the lineage.
Yeah, exactly. But I didn't like really make that connection.
All right, boys. Well, we talked about this one a lot. Unless there's anything else you guys want to bring up, I think we can throw it to in rotation. And I'll start with Jer. What do you think? Will you keep this in your rotation?
Oh man. I was just thinking about Marcus Aurelius still. How good of a track that was. I was like, do I want to like bring this up and like talk about it more? But I won't.
Okay.
Except that I just like completely agree with you that it's like a super fleshed out song, you know, like a like a traditional like high energy, like you got good verses and a decent hook and but that being said, what we're seeing here with this album is like a non-traditional sort of like format, and like we're seeing like some non-traditional like maybe rap music, you know, comparative to what we're normally hearing. And for that, I definitely do appreciate this. Like it didn't need to be so non-traditional that you brought in animal noises, but he did that anyway, and I think that just speaks to Action's character and personality. After watching his YouTube shit, it made me like sort of like hear the album in a different light. He is quite the character, and like B was saying, is also super charismatic and funny. You know, and that sort of made me appreciate the album on a different level. You know, the fact that he's able to do all those things and you know, still put out like some good flows and yeah, you know, with all that being said, like this album, I think it is in rotation for me. Just because like I can sort of just like listen to it and I almost like it, you know, I mentioned like that his flow style doesn't really switch up that much throughout the album, and I still feel that way. But that's almost what makes it almost re-listenable for me. You know, I can just like kind of put it on in the background and let like the music itself kind of be the like be the thing that kind of changes up throughout the album and keeps me sort of listening to it, you know? And I can kind of just ignore the flows, but also like sort of like chime in and appreciate like a good reference here and there throughout. And so long story short, I will keep this in rotation.
Cool, man. I completely agree with you. Yeah, I think you made some really good points. Jay, this is your boy. What do you think, man? You gonna keep this in rotation?
Yeah, it's my boy for sure. I go way back with this dude. But what Jared said is really on point for me. Like, but for me, I apply it more so everything Jared said. I apply it more so to his past work, because this one was a little bit below. I think that he needed to elevate. This is what he did on his last album, but a little bit worse to me in general. That's kind of where I'm. But that being said, I still enjoy it because this dude is a entertainer on a level that's not just a rapper, and he rapping is one of his vehicles that he uses, and I kind of like appreciate the way that he uses so many different vehicles, and rapping might not even be my favorite version of Action Bronson. It might be his Alien show on Vice Network where they have a green screen and they get high as fuck, and they have Tyler the Creator come on, and then they just fucking watch an alien show, and then they just crack up, and the entire show is just things being on the green screen behind them, and they're watching something on the TV. They have It's something like that kind of like draws me into this guy, where it's so off the wall and it's not typical, and he brings that into every lane that he goes into. So it's like I'm always like, okay, something is going to be interesting about whatever he's doing, whatever channel he's going through. And I want to say a couple of things that I think his comedy in general, the way that he's able to be funny on rap songs and rap albums, if you compare him to a funny rapper like Lil Dicky or something. I'm not listening to Lil Dicky. I don't listen to Lil Dicky. He's too straight up comedy. It's like it's not subtle enough. Action Bronson is actually just being funny, and it's bleeding into his art. Lil Dicky, not to knock him, he's a good rapper and he's entertaining. I think that his whole spiel is just a it's like an SNL sketch or something, where Action Bronson is more of a Dave Chappelle. Like he's just funny. He's like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's funny as Dave Chappelle. I'm saying that in the rap game, he's like a funny guy. Like it comes off naturally, but you're able to enjoy the music as well. So saying all that just to say that I love Action Bronson. This specific one though, this specific album, I'm gonna say no, because I already have a ton of Action on my playlist. Lamb Over Rice, his old shit is ton of my playlists are filled up with Action. But this one doesn't have anything that stands out for me, so I'm gonna say no. And I want to make a point to say that Nick's when he was, I can't remember what album, maybe Nas or maybe Ludacris, where he was making the distinction on are we actually keeping these? Do we like these? Are we actually literally keeping these on our playlist? And I'm not gonna literally add this to my playlist. So I gotta say no.
Fair enough. I'll disagree with you. I don't think Lil Dicky is a good rapper.
I'll disagree with you on that. I think
you.
he actually is very talented.
Okay, good. Okay,
I think what Jared said and what you said, it kind of meshes together. What Jared said was there's something here for everybody with Action Bronson, and I think that's kind of what resonates me the most. But Nick, will you keep this in rotation?
So, yeah, this was, like I said earlier, this was kind of my first introduction to Action for his music. Like I said, I saw him on the Hot Ones, kind of learned that he's a bit of a character, saw that come through in this album, and I've heard his name coming up on all these things on like the Vice channel and stuff like that, and it definitely from hearing Jay talk about it, it seems like he is very much a personality, a pop culture personality who can rap, and not necessarily a rapper who's also involved in pop culture. And I'm curious to hear some of his older stuff, especially hearing that it is on some of Jay's old playlists, to kind of, he seems like the kind of guy that you have to find your specific songs that you really like of his. Like Mongolia was one that I actually enjoyed that song. I don't know if I'm going to slap it on any playlist or anything like that, but I really enjoyed the song. This album made me interested in Action. This album made me kind of, like I said, want to go look at some of his old stuff, but also made me look forward to the next thing that he does to see if I can find those few songs that I like. For this album in particular, there was way too much weird, random stuff, cologne commercials, talk show, saxophone, whatever. Half of the album, the song started off with water noises, like some sort of like ambient water or beach noises. Literally, I counted. There was, I think, like 6 or 7 out of the 13 songs started that way. and if they didn't have that, they had Dolphins or both. You know what I mean? And like, I don't need that. I don't need Dolphins make an annoying noise. I don't need that in my life, like when I'm listening to music. So
Are you canceling Dolphins right now?
I love Dolphins. I don't like the noises that they make, and I don't want their noises in my music. They don't make pretty music. You know what I mean? That's not what I'm here for. That's not what the dolphin lovers are here for, is in their music. Anyway, you threw me way off. You threw me way off on trying to defend myself about Dolphins, man. I like Dolphins, all right? No, I don't. I won't be keeping this in rotation, but this made me a kind of an Action fan, someone who's looking forward to future projects from Action, and looking to find those little nuggets and specific songs that I'm gonna like, and hopefully the next album that comes out from him, there's not only one, maybe two tracks on it that I like. Hopefully there'll be, kind of more. Maybe I'll go back and listen to some of his stuff and find even more from him. But there just wasn't enough in this that was good, like, lyrically or, style wise, and just not enough of the beats that I liked, because I didn't like a lot of the random samples and weird vibes that he was going for. Like, I think he did what he was going for on those things. I think he succeeded with what he was trying to do, and like I said earlier, his personality came through. But for me, it's just not music that I'm looking to come back to.
For sure. And I think it's all fair points.
Even on the Dolphins?
I thought it would. I love the dolphin shit, and I'm not trying to cancel Dolphins. SeaWorld, you do your thing.
Nick's the only one trying to cancel Dolphins.
That's true.
Nick's the only one here trying to cancel Dolphins.
Hey man, I cut my 6-pack plastic things. I always cut them before I recycle them. I'm all about dolphins and turtles, baby.
More power to you, bro. For me, like, I love the sound of this album. It is just so different, and like you said, like, he was going for a vibe, and I think he nailed it. And I think, it's a testament to his abilities. I've never seen Action featured anywhere. Jay, I don't know if you disagree with that. I've never seen him featured on stuff.
In the past, not so much like recently. Like, maybe off the top of the head, Mac Miller. But
yeah, okay.
I'm sure he has, but nothing recently from my knowledge.
So there's that to consider. But obviously, he's pulling some big name producers. I respect the hell out of Alchemist, Derringer, Harry Fraud is on this album. So he is at least respected by his peers to have these relationships to work with these producers. And it sounds amazing. I love the sound of this album. And like I said, I mentioned earlier, just very briefly, we haven't reviewed an album that hasn't been like a kind of high caliber, either topic was really charged or the lyricists themselves was very talented. So this is our first time in a long time kind of reviewing something that is just kind of like, it's hip hop, and that's kind of it. So that was a struggle for me listening to this. I was almost too harsh on it in the beginning. I kind of asked myself, a lot of this sounds good and I can listen to it passively, as a lot of you guys said, but there's nothing really special about it. But is there artistry in that? I think the fact that he made this album sound cohesive and unique and interesting is a testament to, like, he's skilled. Is it innovative? A little bit, but not in the same way that I think like Young Thug's original sound, where he kind of was a groundbreaker in a new sound. It's not like that, but I still think there's talent there and there's artistry there. I think he had a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun listening to it. So will I keep it in rotation? I think short term I will, but long term, it's not going to be an album that I'm going to play for the next 5 years. It'll fall off my radar eventually, but I appreciate it for what it is right now. And like Nick said, I am definitely, this made me an Action fan more than I was before, especially like you guys said, watching his Hot Ones interview. Like, this is a very smart and multifaceted person. The charisma is 100% there. So I will definitely keep checking for Action and whatever he does next. And short term, I guess, yeah, I'll kind of keep it in rotation. So guys, all in all, it was awesome getting together with you guys, talking about this album. And I'm looking forward to whatever we do next. So keep it in rotation. We'll see you guys next time.
We're gonna do a Little Dicky album next, right?
Oh God, we're gonna cut that part out of the podcast.
And we're gonna do short-term in rotation and long-term in rotation.
It's gonna be a 2-hour episode next time because we're gonna need that much time to talk about it.
For sure.
All right, later, guys.
Peace out, guys.
Later, boys.
All right, peace.